What's going on, everybody? Friends, Romans, countrymen, welcome to the Bitchuation Room podcast live. I am your host, Francesca Fiorentini. My God, we've got a good show today. Comedian Mohanad Elsheiky is here. Gotta know him, gotta love him. I've been following him for some time now, and really excited to get into some things. We're going to be talking about updates, of course, on, the genocide. How's that going? What's Biden doing to stop it? Not much. Okay, show done. Ba-da-ba-ba-da. No. We're also going to be talking about a really fun topic. Ooh, like super lighthearted and really sweet. We're going to talk about how Boeing's trying to kill us. May have killed someone. I didn't mean to open with conspiracy theories, but you'll see as soon as we get into this story. No, yes, some shady and very scary business over at Boeing. But if the workers have anything to say about it, maybe we will be saved. And then we're going to dig into For the Sitch. Samir Eskanda is here joining us from London. And he is an activist, and specifically a Palestinian BDS activist and an artist who will tell us what the hell is BDS? How do we culturally boycott the Israeli occupation, given that our world leaders, other than if you're South African, have done very little to stop this genocide and the ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. So I'm super happy to have Samir here. If you had any questions or you're wondering how you can, beyond protests, actually make Palestinian liberation part of your everyday life, part of your workplace, Samir's got some ideas. So before we get any further into this, make sure you are liking and sharing the stream right now on YouTube. Make sure you're sending a bunch of love on Twitch. What's up, Twitch? And make sure that if you really want to support this show, well, there's a few things. You write the show a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Write something nice, be creative. Give me a haiku. I've been watching Shogun. Write me a poem. And become a patron. Patreon.com/bitchuationroom is where you go to support this show. You get the entire show ad-free, but you also get access to our bonus episodes after the fact. Bonus episodes are Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Last week, we spoke about Super Tuesday, gave you a lot of my thoughts about Super Tuesdays, a lot of my thoughts about the California Senate race. Again, you've got Adam Schiff going up against a Republican, and that is part because of Adam Schiff's own making. So more thoughts about that and that whole race, and more thoughts about the uncommitted voters and how significant and important they are. So definitely get at that. You can get at that by becoming a member also on YouTube or Twitch. You can watch all that back. My preferred method, patreon.com. Discounts on the American Prospect, which I write for, and you should totally be a loyal reader of the American Prospect, if nothing else other than to read my column on the back page. And with that, let's dig into it, guys. What are you bitching about? So the last week, I was also bitching about something Biden related, and I am going to continue to bitch about something Biden related, but not in the way you might think. I'm going to defend our president. Yes, I'll defend Butcher Biden on this one angle and this one angle only. So here's what I have to say. Stop trying to make Biden look like a bad father. It's perhaps literally the only thing he does well is being a good dad. And we know this for two different reasons. And it is relevant to what has been happening this week, and in fact, just today. But specifically, this entire charade to try and impeach Joe Biden over his son, Hunter, and getting his son, supposedly getting him a job with Burisma and then taking a bunch of money. No, none of that happened. And in fact, the whistleblower that the GOP had lined up turned out to be working with the Russians. So tight, tight, tight. It all fell apart in their faces, and we're supposed to, as in this show, we haven't really covered it that much. Because we knew it was kind of going to go that way. But remember the laptop, people. Beyond the pornographic images, remember that we found out that Joe Biden Sr. was, in fact, an incredible dad. And that some of the messages that he and Hunter exchanged were not about Burisma, were not about taking bribes, were not about, getting his son cushy jobs or trying to whatever the hell they, accused him of doing. No, they were texts like this. Good morning, my beautiful son. I miss you and love you, Dad. Wow. And then there's a lot of response. This was at a time Hunter Biden says, good morning from fucking rehab. Obviously, he's struggled with addiction. He, which is, I guess, a reason to demonize him unless you're a Republican, and then he's a victim. That exchange continued with Hunter saying, if you don't run, I'll never have a chance at redemption. Joe sent Hunter an encouraging burst of short text. I'll run, but I need you. Only focus is recovery, nothing else. Your girls are so smart, truly amazing, very focused. And then some internal drama about his ex-wife, but nothing that crazy. So that's the dirt, guys. That's the dirt that laptop turned out. Now, this week, Robert Hur, who is a Republican and was the special counsel who was tasked with investigating Joe Biden's classified documents scandal, in quotes, remember, he took a year to do that. And this entire investigation found that, at least in John Hur's words, that no, there was no deliberate concealment of these documents. And remember, he said because he is a well-meaning elderly man, and then he said with a poor memory, which Joe Biden took issue with, but more specifically, Robert Hur claimed that Joe Biden didn't remember when his other son, Beau, died. And that actually, as we know now, is not true. Robert Hur went in front of Congress, and Congress, if you were a Republican in Congress, they were like, you're a hero. And if you were a Democrat, you're like, look at the goddamn transcript. It did not say that. And I'll read it very briefly to you. What this transcript said was Joe Biden so senile that he didn't remember when his son had passed away from, I believe, brain cancer. So Biden's basically soliloquying, blah, blah, blah. He just thought that she had a better shot of winning the presidency than I did. This is Hillary. And so I hadn't at this point, even though I'm at Penn, hadn't decided that he would run. I hadn't walked away from the idea that I may run for office again. But if I ran again, I'd be running for president. And so what was happening? Though, what month did Beau die? Oh, God, May 30th. So he asked himself, what month did Beau die? Oh, May 30th. Date, day, month. And then there's a back and forth. His aide says 2015, unidentified male speaker, 2015. President Biden, was it 2015 he died? Unidentified male speaker, it was May of 2015. Biden, it was 2015. And then Bauer, shut the fuck up. No one's asking you. Or I'm not sure the month, sir, but I think that was the year. Bitch, he just told you it was the month. The fuck are you doing? Stop. And then Mr. Crickbomb, whoever the fuck that is, that's right, Mr. President, President Biden. And what happened in the meantime is, as Trump gets elected in November of 2017, unidentified, 2016, Biden. Oh, 2016, right. So why do I have 2017 here? That's when you left office, sir. There's a lot of people speaking. The point is, the guy was more confused about when Trump assumed office and when Trump ran. And so but the date of his son's death, he got that right. That was May 30th. And then his aide was like 2015. Bitch, he wasn't even asking about the year. So that was a segment that this dude, Robert Hur, pulls up, and he said, quote, in his assessment of Biden, that he, quote, did not remember even within several years when his son Beau died. Now, again, You want to critique Joe Biden? Critique him for the stuff that he does out in the open. All the things that we know, all right? Critique him for sending 100 plus shipments of weapons to Israel while it's genociding the people of Gaza. Critique him for, producing more fossil fuels than any other president, even though he swears that he wants to transition away from fossil fuel energy. Critique him for a million things, but it's so funny to me that Republicans consistently try to get him on being a bad dad from his son who was an addict and his son who died of brain cancer. And then all they come up with is, oh, he's actually kind of like a really, really nice dad. He's actually kind of a good person, and he's been there for his sons. Please stop. Please stop. You're making me like him too much. Before we bring in our guest, I want to let you know that this show has got a sponsor. Ayo, yeah, we did it. We did it. No big deal. Sunset Lake CBD. That's right. Vermont-based, vertically integrated farm that grows, harvests, processes, and ships all of its organic, pesticide-free craft CBD products. I don't know what other word you want me to put in there for you to love this company, other than the fact that they donate a bunch of money to causes like Planned Parenthood, also putting money in the pockets of people experiencing poverty. Incredible. I've been using their products for like a year now. I have been trying recently the CBD plus CBN plus melatonin gummies. And let me tell you, for my little anxious mom brain, they have been doing the trick. And again, it's an election year. Our blood pressure is unnecessarily high. CBD absolutely helps, whether it's during the day. They've got focus gummies that have cordyceps and lion's mane. There we go. Lion's mane. They have relax gummies. They even have gummies with a little bit of THC in them, just a milligram, just a little tootly doot. They're an incredible company. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Use the coupon code FRANTIFA at checkout for 20% off your entire purchase. You can do that multiple times. And you also get discounts if you're a subscriber, and they automatically send you stuff. But they're just an incredible company. Oh, before I go, let me just say, they have really good lotion. Guys, I'm a lotion snob. If I put on lotion and it's like not moisturizing me, I'll curse your mom. Like, I swear to God, their lotion, it's like restorative. They call it regenerative lotion. It's got 500 milligrams of CBD. It's lovely. And especially for your little, your little rashy bits. Everybody's got rashy bits. It's wonderful. So sunsetlakecbd.com. Thank you so much. Frantifa at checkout. And with that, let me bring in, God damn it, where's his beautiful bio? He's a stand-up comic, Mohanad. What? Let me just bring him in. Let me bring him all the way from New York City. Please welcome Mohanad Elsheiky. Mohanad, what are your proper credits?
Other than stand-up comedy, I have 2 cats, and I think these are the 2 important credits about me. I don't think anything else matters. I don't
What
think
kind of
TV
cats?
credits matters. American short hair cats.
Ooh, what
Yeah.
color? What are you working with? A calico? I guess
We
that's gonna
have
be more
one
long hair.
calico, yeah, and then the other one is black and white.
Oh, you got a tuxedo cat? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
No, that's not a tuxedo cat. He looks a bit like a cow. Is the
Well,
best way I
that's
can
what it took.
describe him.
Okay, we will get in. You need to send me a picture, and then
Yeah.
everyone can be the
Oh,
judge of this.
absolutely.
But Mohanad, welcome to the show. We've got a lot of news to get into, but as we start, it's your first time here, so
Yes.
you have to come in hot
Hmm.
and just raging about something. What
Always.
are you bitching about today?
Always. My biggest issue is how people communicate online with people they don't know.
Yes.
For example, me. You know the way people send messages. The way we've had Instagram for a decade now or more, I'd say,
Yeah.
and people still do not know how to communicate with strangers. And okay, for example, if
Yeah,
I
you need
post
to,
something,
because this is every day, but
exactly, if I post something and I post a picture of my cat, I post my opinion, I post anything, there is no need to overshare in your DMs and tell me your whole life story. I don't know you as a person. And now I have this toll on me to figure out how I could respond to you. Like literally, I've had people in my DMs tell me about their parents, their families, their like trauma
No.
because I posted something, and I know people are trying to relate, but you're a stranger to me. I don't know you. How am I supposed to respond to you? Also, the way people comment sometimes, as
Wait,
well.
on the first part,
Yes,
I agree with you. I think there's a level of oversharing, and also I think it puts a lot of emotional responsibility on the person receiving it because, and usually with me, it's men who are very emotionally needy. Somehow online, I'm like, we are not boyfriend girlfriend, um, but I do think like it doesn't. What's a little heart gonna hurt? You just respond with a little heart. There's a little, or you set up a
yes.
Patreon and you're like, if you would like my advice, patreon.com/, Elsheiky open for business, or Elsheiky hours, or shaky hours sounds better.
You know what? I've noticed though, if you reply with a heart, that means I am open for more communication because I replied.
Yeah. No, I understand. Okay, so then what about the comments? Because let me tell you, I've been getting I get notifications when people start debating in my comments, and
That is exactly
I cannot take that.
that is one thing I was gonna say. Sometimes people will debate in my comments for weeks. They go back and forth.
Yes.
But my thing
And
is,
even some of them are like friends, and I'm like, I love you. Just please stop.
yes,
Like, you need to stop.
absolutely. But also when people do not reply, do not read the other comments. Sometimes like someone would ask a question,
Uh huh.
and I would reply to it.
Uh huh.
Do not come back again and ask me the same question, a different person. Like we've answered that. We've gone over it. Al-
See
Also,
below.
exactly. Also, sometimes stuff can be Googled because, like, sometimes someone will ask me a question, and I'm like, you can find that online. The thing that you're using right now, use that to find your answer. Why are you asking me? Why are we doing that?
They want your personal recommendations.
Exactly. But if you answer, then that also opened the door to, like, okay, now we're communicating. I'm gonna talk more. And it's
Yes.
like, don't do that. Do not
Well,
do that.
I think especially as someone who puts out content as you do for free, which is very sad that it is, we've been reduced to content, even though you are a comic
Yeah,
and you can go pay and see your work, and the jokes you've, written out and thought out. But it's like we're giving you a lot of material, and in no way is this a contract for me to also individually reply to each of you. Like,
absolutely.
if you're AOC, like I sort of understand that, and that she is an elected official and she
Yes.
does a great job answering. She was like actually representing the people. You're representing no one.
No,
You're
absolutely
entertaining.
no.
You've got a perspective,
Um,
and
I'm barely representing myself, I'd say. And also, last but not least, and this
yes.
is very specific to me because I do comedy, is that people somehow had it in their heads because you do comedy, it means that they can try and roast you jokingly or say something
Mm.
mean to you as a way of a joke, and then if you reply to them, be like, "Hey, don't say that" or whatever, they're like, "Oh, can't take a joke." I'm like, "Yes, I can take a joke." That's I'm like, I don't know what about me that made it sound like I am not a sensitive person because I am. And if you say
I
something
still
mean to
have
me,
feelings. In fact, I
exactly,
have more feelings than most people. You're a stand-up comic. You need constant
exactly,
of affirmation.
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, do not try and roast me. I don't know you, stranger. Like, I only have your profile picture. How am I supposed to reply?
Well, sometimes they're really funny profile pictures, and you can just post. Matt, my husband's go-to is just taking a screenshot of their profile and commenting, "Look at your stupid fucking face." And so you can use that, or anyone listening can use that. I do find that to be very, very, I mean, not for someone who's like nice, but if they're shitty, you can always do that.
Absolutely, 100%.
Let's move on though, because this is good. Yeah, people forgot how to act online, indeed. But let's get to it. So many things happened this week, but only two that we're going to get to right now. This is the week where. So it is the first week of Ramadan. Ramadan Mubarak to all who celebrate. Um, though there is obviously a genocide hanging over us all as Israel continues to bomb Gaza. The death toll is now above 31,000 and counting. Israel's very much going to still invade Rafah, which is now home to what, 2 million refugees or 1.5 million refugees. What is the US doing about it? So Biden gave his State of the Union address. We're going to talk more about that next week, actually. He was angry. He was energetic. He was disappointing on foreign policy. He reiterated his call for a ceasefire for 6 weeks and then also announced that the U.S. would be building a temporary pier off of Gaza to get the Palestinian people food aid. Um, Now, this is pretty remarkable for like a million reasons, and I wanted to go through it with you, Mohanad, but what is this? Like, how does this dock, like temporary dock, work? So the Pentagon laid out a timeline on Friday saying the plan to build the dock could take up to 60 days and involve more than 1,000 American troops. Once it becomes operational, 60 days later, the pier would allow deliveries of 2 million meals to Gaza per day. Now, yeah, they predicted that it would take that time. Now, here's a real thing. Biden said that the Israeli government will be maintaining security at said pier. It's unclear who will be unloading the aid at the dock and also moving it to shore. Experts have questioned how Israel, which has crippled aid delivery through land borders, would allow aid supplies via the sea. Yeah. In fact, before I kick it to you, just so you know, just I guess yesterday, the chief of UNRWA said Israeli forces turned back trucks loaded with aid to northern Gaza because, quote, it had scissors used in children's medical kits. So the pier, Mohanad.
To be fair, the pier makes so much sense because, as we know, there is no way to get aid to Gaza by road. That's just not
Mhm.
available for some reason. Yeah,
Well,
we
they're all
forgot about
anti-Semitic, so
exactly. Yeah,
the
and
roads
because like
are
either we
Holocaust deniers.
exactly either we build this or we ask the protesters who are stopping the aid to move away. Now, which one is easier? Of course, building a
Build a
pier.
port for 60 days and like yeah, so 2 months later when
Exactly.
thousands of people have died of starvation, you can get some food to some people. Yeah, it's not just protesters, it's the Israeli government as we saw. Like they're the ones
Absolutely.
stopping them, they're checking them. They're deliberately delaying the aid almost like starvation is a tactic of war.
Absolutely. And what I love the most is how we are supposed to pretend that President Biden is baby. He doesn't have any power. He's like this little baby. Was like, I'm trying my best here, guys. I can't do
Yeah.
anything. And and here's what I can tell. Okay, are we like because like the elections are coming and Donald Trump is running, and we are being presented by two scenarios. The first one is president is baby. He can't do anything. He has no power. And
Yes.
also, if Trump was elected, he will destroy democracy because the president has so much power. So, which one is it? Does the president have a lot of power, or does the president have no power?
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Joe, how about take all of that power you're afraid of being used and use it for good? I mean, and
Exactly.
this is the thing that I think centrist Democrats, and again, by the way, what we're saying would not even I mean, it wouldn't even require congressional approval. It would just require not shipping, hundreds of weapons deliveries to Israel, which has been done unilaterally by the president. So, kind of a counterpoint
Yeah.
to your point, which I think is a perfect irony, he is going above the heads of Congress and normal, sort of checks and balances to give more weapons to a genocidal state entity. And it's just, yeah. So yeah, but you're totally right. You're like it's like, well, I'm totally helpless here, except for here you go, here you go, here you go. And in fact, to that point, and this has been very interesting because the whole question of a ground invasion of Rafah, there's um, dueling messages coming out of the White House.
Hmm.
On one hand, there's officials who say, yes, if there was a ground invasion of Rafah, that would be a red line and we would consider revoking weapons to Israel. But then there's Biden himself, who this was just after his State of the Union address to NBC or MSNBC, saying that Actually, there's literally nothing Israel could do to get him to cut off weapons.
What is your red line with Prime Minister Netanyahu? Do you have a red line? For instance, would invasion of Rafah, which you have urged him not to do, would that be a red line?
It is a red line, but I'm never going to leave Israel. The defense of Israel is still critical. So there's no red line. I'm going to cut off all weapons so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them. They don't have. But there's red lines that if he crosses, and he cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead as a consequence of going after. There's other ways to deal with the trauma caused by Hamas.
Yeah, it's called therapy. That's how you deal with the trauma caused by Hamas. No, I'm just like, wait, take the first stab, Mohanad. There's a million things that are terrifying about that statement.
Yeah, it's funny because he's saying there are no red lines, and then at the same time he was like, "Well, they're like red lines. We don't need more 30,000 Palestinians dead." I'm just like, "Which one is it, buddy? Like, what are you even saying?" And also, he literally sounds like one of those people those friends that you have who have like a toxic boyfriend, girlfriend, or something, and they're like, "Well, whatever they do, I know deep down they love me."
Yeah, I mean,
And
like, he can't hit me again,
exactly,
and like that would be a red line maybe, but I'm still gonna let him use my car because, like,
exactly.
how's he getting to his job slash his other
Yeah,
girlfriend?
he's toxic to everyone else, but he's nice to me.
Right,
And
right. Or
so
that,
I don't know.
exactly.
No, exactly. It's truly makes no sense because you have the power here. You have the upper hand. Why are we pretending that you don't? It's
Well, yeah, and like let's focus on the 30,000 more. So
yeah.
the follow-up
Yeah.
for me is 30,000 an acceptable number of dead Palestinians to you? 25 times the number that Hamas killed on October 7th? Is that acceptable to you? Or is it no, we can have 10,000 more. We can have 20,000 more. We can have 27,500 more dead Palestinians, but not 30,000 more.
Exactly.
Like what it is so crass to say just 30,000 more like that. And then, the first thing is like if you're Netanyahu and you hear that, which by the way, he was very offended and he's like, we're going to keep on going into Rafah no matter what. But like, he didn't even he didn't say anything against you. He said, in fact, there's nothing you could do that would, make him like not love you and send you weapons over and over and over again. Like, there's nothing you could do. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna
And
fucking
Biden continues to do that, like because he always tries to appease people who will never like him, like Netanyahu or
right. Yes,
Republicans.
yes.
Because he always tries to give them what they want. Even like in the State of the Union, when he called people crossing the border illegals to appease Republicans. I'm like, they will never like you no matter what you say. So stop. The same thing with Netanyahu. No matter what you say, if you do not say that you fully support him, period, and that's it, he's not going to accept anything else. So why are
Yeah.
you trying to appease him? It's so insane
But
to me.
he's like, "Come on, man. How could you not like me? I'm a good dad. I ate a lot of pancakes at the pancake breakfast. For some reason, Biden is the pancake breakfast guy to me in my head. I think I made it up. But like he can't get over the fact that no one would like him. And you're totally right. Like he thinks that he can Biden whisper his way into peace and harmony. And actually, when you whisper, dog, no one is listening. Like literally
Exactly.
no one's listening to you.
Absolutely. I just hope that I do not, to my 80s, still be a people pleaser. It's insane. My man, like, just based on how time works, you don't have a lot left.
Yeah.
Why don't you take a stand now and be remembered for something good? Like, literally, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
There's nothing to lose. That's it.
Yeah.
Just,
It's, next week we're going to dive into some of the, the things that he talks about in the State of the Union and, the Bidenomics and the good stuff. But it is so difficult. And even just for me, like every week planning this show and, it's just so difficult to not focus on what is happening before our very eyes. Every day we see new horrifying images, every fucking day. And so you cannot separate this assault, this attack, this atrocity from this president. And artists
Yes.
are not doing that either. We're going to talk about that in a little bit, including the Oscars. But first, before we go back to Palestine stuff, let's take a brief detour, as in what a lot of planes have had to do since their wheels are falling off and their jets are exploding, and talk about Boeing. So Boeing is at the heart of like a ton of, I don't even want to call them scandals, but like late stage capitalist of courses. On
Yes.
Saturday, the Department of Justice officially opened a criminal investigation into that Alaska flight, whose door blew off because apparently the bolts weren't screwed on properly or were just ill-fitting bolts. I think that's an interesting workers question there. Like, are you
Yeah.
blaming workers for just not tightening
Yeah.
them? Put that aside. But then this week, a bunch of other Boeing accidents occurred. Let's just go through them and then sort of get to the big story.
Mhm.
So in one incident, and sadly they're all United, which I'm an American Airlines bitch myself, but United Flight 35, Boeing 777, carrying 235 passengers and 14 crew, was taking off from San Francisco to Osaka when a tire fell off. It landed in the airport staff car park, breaking a car window. The tire, not the flight. I thought for a second. Apparently that was fine because the plane can land without tires, which you're like,
Oh, thank God.
why was that even a like
Yeah.
fallback plan? Then this is all this week, y'all, or last week, in the last 10 days. On Monday, footage showed bright flames bursting out of an engine of United Flight 1118, a Boeing 737, en route to Houston from Houston to Fort Myers. The flight was carrying 167 passengers and made an emergency landing back in Houston. And then Flight 2477, Boeing 737 MAX 8, carrying 160 passengers and 6 crew, attempted to land at Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport when it rolled off the taxiway into the grass. United added that the passengers, who were all safe, deplaned via movable stairs, which I gotta say sounds kind of tight. Like that's fun. Like you landed in the grass and then you got to like get off in the middle of the run. I don't know. There's something I'm like, that'd be kind of cool just for the story.
No, I agree. I agree.
Like, first of all, I love movable stairs, exits and entries. I like the fresh air. So they are so lucky that none of these incidents in the last week like resulted in injuries or deaths, not even that door flying off. Of course, this is to say nothing of the 2 flights that on their Boeing Max, forgot which 7 something, those 2 flights did crash because of their faulty technology on their like self-correcting whatever, some fucking electronic malfunction. But on top of all that, this week, and this is pretty freaking scary, a man named John Barnett, who was a whistleblower, was found dead in his car. He was a whistleblower for Boeing. He had worked at Boeing for 32 years until his retirement in 2017. In the days before his death, he had been giving evidence in a whistleblower lawsuit against the company. Dun, dun, dun. Now, before you get too crazy, this was an ongoing lawsuit. Basically, he was suing the company for stalking him, for harassing him, and they had were deposing him in that lawsuit. So it's not that this was his only testimony about the company's malfeasance, but let's look at his history of testimony. In 2019, he told the BBC that under pressure workers had been deliberately fitting substandard parts to aircraft on the production line. He also said he uncovered serious problems with oxygen systems, which could mean 1 in 4 breathing masks would not work in an emergency. Hopefully it's not the one you give to your child first, or is the one you give to I'm not sure. Depends on how much you love your kid. But he said in some cases, substandard parts had even been removed from scrap bins and fitted to planes that were being built to prevent delays on the production line. Yes, wouldn't want to slow that down. Boeing denied assertions. However, in a 2017 review by U.S. regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration did uphold some of Mr. Barnett's concerns. After retiring, he embarked on a long-running legal action against the company. He accused it of denigrating his character and hampering his career because of the issues he pointed out, charges rejected by Boeing. And it was that he was in the middle of testifying about. And you can only imagine, you know, had he lived, if the DOJ would have interviewed him about this, you know, more the latest debacle with the door flying off of the building, he or the plane, he was found by a self-inflicted wound. It up until now, and maybe folks know differently, I'm not getting confirmation on what that wound was. Whether it was like there were just a lot of bruises or it was a gunshot wound, it's unclear. But Mohanad, I got a flight coming up. You got to travel for stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
Beyond being completely self-interested, this is just, it's so terrifying and so predictable about what happens when you just allow your bottom line to run everything.
hmm It's honestly, I mean, it's scary because I've noticed even like when I take some flights, sometimes people will ask you if you would be willing to switch seats with them because they don't want to sit by the window seat anymore, as
God.
if that's gonna change anything. I'm like, if this breaks, we're all gone.
Yeah,
It's not just gonna be the window person, but
exactly. But yes, but I'm an aisle person, but mostly because I have to pee a lot.
yeah, but I think at least if you're gonna have all of these issues, make flights cheaper. I don't know.
Give
You
us
can give
yeah,
us something.
free baggage. And no, and this is on top of it. I mean, Biden is trying to do away with junk fees. There's going to
hmm
be something around, uh, all the extra fees that airlines charge you. But like, I just want to live. I mean, there's a reason why people clap when the plane lands. It's not that it was a good landing. It's because they're alive.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah, it's honestly like just like you said, it's so scary because like we know capitalism is bad, but like this is like a whole different level.
yes,
Because at least like I feel like for planes, I literally never have been scared of it crashing or like something bad happening. That's just like something that I never thought about, even though I travel a lot. But now it's a possibility. Like we see the incidents, we see the numbers,
right.
and
Before
how
it
are
was
we
like
allowing that?
right. It was like statistically, you're like, nah, I'm not going to be in that statistic. But now it's like, oh, statistically, you might, Um, and no, and yes, and people are mentioning, thank you, Bad Lefty, is also Boeing's one of the biggest arms dealers. Yeah. And that is actually really interesting when it comes to, do you remember, Mohanad, during the UAW strike, that there was also, and I think a promise from leaders like Sean Fain to look into whether UAW was complicit in manufacturing and some of the weapons that were used to kill Palestinians, and that would be like an ongoing investigation. And I'm very curious because there is, Boeing is renegotiating their contract. They're looking for a 40% pay raise over the next 3 to 4 years. They let's see, the last deal was in 2014 and it limited pay raises to less than 1% on average. So again, and this is like, we already know that pilots and oh gosh, I can't, air hostesses, how do you call them? Not
Flight
stewardesses,
attendants.
flight attendants. I always forget what flight attendants, the broads with the nice legs.
Yeah.
Like we all know that they are like not getting paid enough. They're like um, horrible schedules, overtired, ridiculous routes. And
hmm
then now it's the people manufacturing these planes that are like have like horrible, like what limits on how much they can get a raise by. And so I am very interested and curious to see like if this becomes, which it is, a worker issue, especially if the company tries to
Of
pass the
course.
buck to the workers, um, how that could dovetail into maybe, and this is maybe just my wishful thinking, some kind of protest or around their Boeing's involvement in like, yeah, wars abroad. Um, yeah, that's just me. That's just me like pie in the sky. But in the meantime, Pete Buttigieg needs to fucking do some shit.
Oh yeah, I forgot that that was his thing. You
He
know,
thought it was gonna be such an easy role. He was like, this is nobody cares. Department of Transportation, not a big deal.
you know what I think at least they can do is they need to start offering good meals on planes
Oh
because
yeah.
here's the thing: if this is gonna be my last meal, I need it to be something good. You can't give me that Biscoff shit again, you know?
Yeah. No, exactly. I don't want that snack basket passed around.
No.
What would you want them to serve?
Probably like meat, chicken, some beef, you know,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
steak, something like that.
How many people had to piss off a drink cart for them to stop selling alcohol as they did? Like, I do think
Yeah,
alcohol should be free. Especially, I believe that alcohol should be free when a little bit of turbulence, let the booze flow, you know? Especially if your
absolutely.
oxygen masks aren't going to work, your girl's going to need a few vodkas, you know?
Absolutely. 100%. They need, yeah, like give me something. If you're not going to fix the problem, give me ways to cope with the problem.
Yeah, a little filet mignon, and I'll say nothing about it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, let me bring in our guest. Super excited to have him. He's a Palestinian artist, organizer, human rights activist based in the UK. Please welcome Samir Eskanda. Samir, hi.
Hey,
How's it
good
going?
to see you.
Really good to see you too.
Yes,
We
okay.
we met earlier on in this terrible assault on Gaza, and we were discussing boycott, divestment, sanctions, and we were discussing truly the ways that we can move beyond our governments who seem so tied up in their own militarism and actually, again, work where we are to try and boycott Israel, and which is obviously a legacy of the anti-apartheid movement from South Africa. But welcome, tell me about yourself again for the people who don't know you and how you got involved in this work around like cultural boycott of Israel.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be here and to see you again. So I'm a Palestinian musician and BDS activist. I'm based in the UK, as you might be able to tell. And I've been involved in BDS campaigning, especially the cultural boycott of Israel, for quite a few years now. I've worked on different campaigns appealing to musicians, filmmakers, and others to heed the call of Palestinian society, including the absolute majority of artists, musicians, to end complicity in Israel's regime of apartheid, occupation, and genocide. So the BDS movement, Boycott, Divestment and Sanctions, is calling for the end of complicity. And what that means is ending Israel's impunity, because of course, Israel is only able to carry out its genocide against 2.3 million Palestinians in Gaza because of this impunity that it is afforded, especially by the West.
Mm-hmm. And the call for BDS, where does that come from? You say we answer the call. Like, where does the call come from? And then what is BDS? I know it makes Bernie Sanders a little uneasy, as he most recently said. But it's actually a nonviolent form of protest. Can you explain?
So BDS was launched in 2005 by the absolute majority of Palestinian society, as I mentioned, and really the BDS National Committee, which is the largest Palestinian coalition, it includes trade unions, artists, really every kind of association and union you can think of.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an authoritative call from an oppressed people, in this case, the Palestinians. And since 2005, the BDS movement has been campaigning for international corporations, institutions, for artists, academics, and others to really work to end complicity in Israel's oppression. So BDS isn't asking artists and others to come and save Palestinians. What it's saying is, stop helping Israel oppress us. That's what the BDS movement, led by Palestinians, is calling for.
And it's had a fair amount of success and even sort of like turbocharged, obviously, in the last 5 months. And we're talking schools, sports, religious institutions, tech companies. Recently you just saw an employee of Google who was fired, but for speaking out about Project Nimbus, I believe it's called, which is basically AI tracking of civilians in order to target and kill them in Gaza. And so Google and Amazon are invested in that. But then cultural institutions. And before we go into the cultural stuff, I just want to ask you, what are the parameters? Like, what's the, how fast, hard and fast is it? Like, divestment from the, companies that might profit from occupied territories in the West Bank and Gaza, direct military ties, or is it all of Israel proper? Is there a distinction, and does that matter?
So, I mean, I think probably the biggest success that the BDS movement has had recently was when the German really leading sportswear company Puma announced a year ahead of time, it announced that it was ending, it was not renewing its sponsorship of the Israel Football Association, which does include 6 teams in Israel's illegal settlements. So Puma announced this a year early, just a few months ago. And
like they were already going to do it.
Happened, yeah, exactly. I mean, well, what they've been compelled to end this sponsorship by a 5-year BDS campaign all over the world, by leveraging and focusing a huge amount of pressure on this one big company. The BDS movement was able to compel it to abandon the Israeli market. And there's an important point in there, which is that BDS does focus on a relatively small number of targets at any one time. So it's looking to identify the kind of best targets that we can go after as a global movement to kind of put a lot of our resources in one place, and then really maximize our impact. And that strategy has worked with other major corporations too.
Yeah, and you're seeing it now. I mean, in terms of, Starbucks or McDonald's, there is a very conscious, at least on the boycott level, just in civil society and people, in this country, the United States, and I'm sure in the UK, saying like, we see that McDonald's is giving these meals to the IDF, and we like, fuck McDonald's. I'm going to boycott McDonald's, or fuck Starbucks. We're going to boycott Starbucks. And, it's not clear whether or not, Starbucks is already atrophying, mostly because they literally bought every storefront possible. But like, this cannot help them, so that boycott part of it. And you've seen, just, I don't have all the examples, but there's just incredible, like, a young Palestinian or a filmmaker recently did a great ad basically about how your dollars, and I think it was Pepsi, can turn into weapons. And it was just very compelling. But I guess I wanted to ask you, like, I guess more on like the cultural level, like on when it comes to artists, how are maybe in order to get us into this, we can look at this speech from Jonathan Glazer, who won for Best Foreign Film at the Oscars this past Sunday, and used his platform to basically speak out against occupation and the ongoing genocide, though he didn't say genocide, but he did say, and this got twisted immediately, that he and the other 2 men there, his fellow recipients, refute their Jewishness being used, and the Holocaust being used to justify occupation, which was incredible. And the reaction was also incredible. So I want to get your take on it and then talk about that. So take a look.
Thank you so much. I'm going to read, I'm afraid. Thank you to the Academy for this honor, and to our partners A24, Film for Access, and the Polish Film Institute, to the Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum for their trust and guidance, to my producers, actors, collaborators. All our choices were made to reflect and confront us in the present, not to say, look what they did then, rather look what we do now. Our film shows where dehumanization leads at its worst. It shaped all of our past and present. Right now, we stand here as men who refute their Jewishness and the Holocaust being hijacked by an occupation which has led to conflict for so many innocent people. Whether the victims of October the 7th in Israel or the ongoing attack on Gaza, all are victims of this dehumanization. How do we resist? Alexandra Bistron Kaladziejczak, the girl who glows in the film as she did in life, chose to. I dedicate this to her memory and her resistance. Thank you.
So that was Jonathan Glazer, who won for Zone of Interest, was a film about a family living outside of Auschwitz and a young girl who leaves food outside of this, death camp for the prisoners there. Of all the people to speak about genocide on that stage, it had to be, and it was so fitting, and the applause gives you a sense of a million things. It had to be this guy, these filmmakers, the fact that they are Jewish, and it was a film about the Holocaust. Samir, just your response, and were you surprised maybe to hear some of that applause?
Well, I think it was a very moving, brief speech that Jonathan Glazer made. And I think he touched on a few really key points there, which are that the Palestinian people have been so comprehensively demonized for decades, but especially in the last 5 months plus. Now, refuting the dehumanizing propaganda that Palestinians are constantly subjected to by the mainstream media, especially, not only, but especially in the US, is a really key part of our pushback, generally speaking, to try to halt this genocide. Because once you have completely dehumanized a people, you can do what you want to them. And in this case, that is genocide. So I think by rejecting that, Jonathan Glazer is doing something meaningful there. And another important point that I think he made is to assert that Israel's oppression is the root cause of violence. And this is very important as well. There is no justification for Israel's genocide in Gaza. There is no justification for genocide, the crime of crimes, under international law. And his speech, I think, touched on that.
Yeah. And I think I just have to say, this is, he's in Hollywood. There are a lot of Jews who are in Hollywood. There are a lot of Zionists who are in Hollywood. There are also a lot of anti-Zionists who are in Hollywood. The fact that he got an applause, for me, as someone who has seen usually, sort of wealthy cowards who want to keep, look glamorous and not talk about war crimes. They've been silent on a lot of things. They booed Michael Moore when it was very clear that the Iraq war was ill-advised and murderous and awful in 2003. And the fact that this audience clapped is absolutely remarkable and momentous, and shows you that there is a sea change even in places that supposedly don't speak out about Palestinian human rights. And again, back to this, also the lie that that Jews are not the ones leading a lot of these calls for a ceasefire, a permanent and lasting ceasefire, to say nothing of an end to the occupation. But in terms of artists, I think a lot of artists in this time are and Mohanad, please feel free to jump in. They're very who am I? I'm just an artist. I'm just a musician. I can't do anything. I don't know. Nobody cares. That's starting to be burst in this moment, and it has been. But what is the unique position of artists, whether it's musicians or actors or otherwise, to be able to also participate in a certain amount of boycott and divestment? You've had success with that, but can you talk about that?
Well, I think that all artists and arts organizations, cultural institutions, have a profound moral obligation to end all complicity in Israel's oppression against Palestinians. So that's a profound moral duty. It's something you have to do as a first step. You can't skip that step, actually. You can't skip it and say, well, what's it going to look like after? No, we need you actually to address the complicity that you may or may not have at this current time. And tens of thousands of artists all over the world, including in the US, have pledged to refuse to perform or appear or exhibit in apartheid Israel. So we're talking here about the cultural boycott of Israel.
Yeah.
And aside from individual pledges, we also have many organizations, including like publishers and some festivals and others, also endorsing the cultural boycott of Israel. And over the years, the BDS movement has also campaigned for boycotting festivals that may be, for example, sponsored by the Israeli embassy. And right now, people may be aware, more than 80 artists and panelists have pulled out of South by Southwest, which is ongoing right now.
Yes.
Because South by Southwest is sponsored by the US Army and different weapons manufacturers. And I think just before we came on air, the BDS movement also joined those calls to boycott South by Southwest.
That's huge. I mean, because that's interesting to me because South by Southwest, it's not like they have ties to, there's not like an Israeli company necessarily, but it's the United States military. It's like, this is part of our image and cleaning it up. Blah, blah, blah. Meanwhile, all of the death that they're raining down on Gaza, like that folks are making that direct link, and that Israel's genocide is our genocide as well. And so that to me is incredible. And also there's a lot of like artists from Europe that are asked which I somehow put above like American artists. Although to her credit, Billie Eilish, for example, wore a ceasefire pin to the Oscars, which honestly, Eilish was probably one of the biggest celebrities if you're under 30 at that event. But Mohanad, weigh in here.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously art has been used for like propaganda for a long time, especially with the U.S. military. Like if you see like most of like Tom Cruise movies and stuff like that, they're like just to get people to sign
Every
up to the U.S.
Transformer movie.
Exactly, just to sign up to the U.S. military. So to come now and say that art does not matter, or like, oh, you might like, I'm just an artist. What do I know? What can I do? I'm like, no, especially if you have a sizable like fan base, they like you, they listen to you, they look up to you for a reason, and you should be using your art and your voice to advocate for Palestinians, for innocent people everywhere. Because if you're not, honestly, it's just what is the point of the art that you're making or anything that you're doing? Because if it's soulless like that, there is no point of consuming it. And because like an example of that, since you were speaking about the Oscars, the animated short that won was called War is Over. What a missed opportunity to use your stage and your platform and the message of your movie to speak about the current war happening right now. But instead, they went up and they were like, "Yeah, I'd like to thank my mom and I'd like to thank my family." And then just like, I'm like, "What? Do you even know what your movie is about?"
Yeah.
Or yeah, like it just felt so ridiculous. And I'm glad that Jonathan Glazer like talked about like and called them the occupation forces as well.
Yes.
And made that distinction. And even though obviously if you go now and look at people online and how they're perceiving it, as if they have never seen how English is spoken before, being like, oh, he refutes his Jewishness, he doesn't like to be Jewish,
deliberately twisting it.
And I'm like, do you not like understand how words work? It's very clear what he said. So yeah, I'm glad they did that. And I think yes, more people and artists absolutely need to do that because it's very essential right now.
And there's a difference, and I want to like get to the BDS stuff because BDS is organized, right? Like there's a difference between using your platform to speak out, which is incredible, and then this is my question is like making this a long-term commitment. Some of the thoughts I have are, how do we boycott films being made in Hollywood that are sponsored by the U.S. military? And if there are actors or writers or, you know, other folks who work on films who reject or refuse to work on a film that might be sponsored by the US military or in some way be linked to Israel, that is a huge win. In terms of these big names, though, another thing is just refusing to perform. I mean, Samir, can you speak to actually how Israel really uses the arts to validate its own actions and sort of standing in the world?
So Israeli leaders, even as they carry out this genocide in Gaza, are well aware of the potential that art has, Mohanad, like you're talking about, and Francesca, that it has. And they've been quite open, actually, about art washing, whitewashing the apartheid regime through what they called the Brand Israel program, launched some years ago, and one foreign ministry official saying we don't distinguish, actually, between Hasbara, which means propaganda, and culture. We see no difference between them. And
what does that mean? It's sort of like all culture is in service of sort of the Israeli propaganda machine and our righteousness and whatnot.
Exactly. So another Israeli foreign ministry official has said, you know, I'm paraphrasing, but we'll show you Israel's prettier face by sending poets, novelists, artists around the world. So it's a very conscious art washing program that Israel is engaged in to try to cover up its crimes against humanity, including the crime of apartheid, as leading human rights organizations have accused it of in authoritative reports. Yeah. So just recently, I mean, I don't know if you're aware of Eurovision. Eurovision yes. is the world's biggest live music event. It gets more viewers than the Super Bowl, just to translate it into American. And it's mainly a European contest.
Thank you.
But,
are there chicken wings that are eaten? But yes.
Australia also participates and Israel participates. Now, Russia was suspended within hours of its illegal invasion of Ukraine 2 years ago, and the Eurovision organizers said the inclusion of a Russian entrant would bring Eurovision into disrepute, was their term. Now, despite thousands of musicians and artists so far in many different countries, but Sweden, Finland, Iceland, Portugal, and other places have been, and politicians, European politicians, the Belgian culture ministers have just been calling for Israel's exclusion. Eurovision organizers have said there's no way we're going to drop Israel. There is absolutely no way we would do that. So the colonial hypocrisy is absolutely shameless at this point. Now, without getting too much into the details of it, there was a controversy recently because Israel's submission for Eurovision had quite overtly political lyrics, and this is supposedly not allowed at Eurovision, although kind of inconsistently enforced. And for a while, it looked like Israel was threatening to withdraw until the Israeli president, who in between signing missiles destined to blow up people in Gaza, and in between saying there are no innocent people in Gaza, made a very public intervention to basically smooth things over and say Israel has to participate in Eurovision. And why? He said, the Israeli president, because the winners will be the BDS movement if we don't.
Oof, yeah.
So at the highest political levels,
I mean, that's the other thing. Yeah, keep going.
No, just that at the highest political levels, genocidal Israel absolutely realizes that it is facing a growing isolation on the world stage, and will do almost anything to try to prevent that. I mean, another example is the Venice Biennale, which you may know is one of the world's, if not the world's biggest arts exhibition. Happens every 2 years, and already more than 22,000 artists have called for Israel to be excluded from the Venice Biennale. So really what's happening now is really tens and tens of thousands of artists out there using their platforms to call not just for ceasefire, which we absolutely must keep doing, but also for accountability. Yeah. For accountability for Israel's perpetration of genocide, apartheid, occupation, and colonization.
I mean, it is sort of making Israel the pariah state that they have made themselves, number one, but in a way, doing it on a level of the arts and cultural institutions is brilliant, especially when our governments are so behind on doing so and following suit. I do want to ask you, and you made this great point when we had this meeting, back in the fall, but why are cultural institutions like museums or artist grants, or why are they like uniquely susceptible to boycotts, or and also and sort of like being held accountable for including Israel in them, or like whitewashing Israel's crimes? And also, how are people of color uniquely positioned to hold them accountable? You had a really good point. Maybe I'm jogging that for you.
I don't really remember exactly what I was saying. It was quite a few months ago now.
Well, you made this great point, which you basically said that most institutions, museums and whatnot, they pride themselves in diversity, and that they cannot get away now with having an all white, lineup or for their slate or their film festival or their exhibits. And so they love to like use the global South as these examples of how they're so, down and for social justice, and they support these marginalized voices. But then when it comes to Palestinians, they're nowhere to be found, or they're complicit, in different Israeli institutions. So that's sort of the point you were making.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think what that kind of relates to as well is to do with censorship. Because we're talking here about how arts organizations, institutions, let's say in the US, are really engaged in this quite quiet, mostly, but sometimes quite brazen McCarthyism and censorship. And so I think when we spoke about this, that was a time when the kind of reactions, the organized reactions of many artists to this kind of censorship was just kind of coming out, actually. So there'd been a few really interesting examples of artists responding to this kind of censorship. Let's say one poet is disinvited from a poetry program, all the other poets all drop out, and the whole thing collapses. They've got no program now. And so in that kind of strategic, selective sense, it can really, really work. And I think since we spoke, I think we've seen that all over the place, actually. We've seen so many reactions to this kind of censorship, including in Germany, also in Britain and the US and elsewhere, reacting with these kind of boycotts, recognizing that, yes, as you say, these are, in many cases, these are racist, hegemonic institutions. But they cannot get away, like you said, with making that too obvious. They can't have, they can't do without the global majority.
Yeah.
And guess what? We're the global majority, including artists. And so trying to single out, trying to exceptionalize support for Palestinians, as some of these institutions still insist on doing, they can't get away with it as long as artists are vigilant and they work together and they're strategic about it, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you saw, it led to this is different, but like, I think that's a great point. But, just since we spoke, you saw the president of the university, I believe, of Pennsylvania. Well, what university was it? Mohanad, do you remember? Pennsylvania, was it, who allowed for a literary, like a Palestinian literary event to go forward, and was like dogged by that decision, and then was eventually forced to resign, which is just like, it's just wild and ridiculous. But again, it had to do with simply making space for Palestinian authors and voices, and that was seen as, and so-called anti-Semitic, or whatever the hell it was billed as. I do want to. Was it Pennsylvania?
It was UPenn, yeah.
UPenn, yeah. Just Mohanad, maybe you want to weigh in here, but Samir, I'm not sure if you've seen this, and maybe I can treat you to this. But what am I watching here? This is Tiffany Haddish sitting down with, I guess, an Israeli actress named Noah Tishby, who's been like truly one of the worst
Yeah.
Hasbara propagandists since this genocide began. Hang on. So they're sitting around a table eating pickles.
I was shocked that what did Tiffany ask to have backstage?
Pickles.
Kosher pickles.
Kosher pickles.
Which is shocking. First of all, I love pickles as well. But also, let's just have a quick chat about the pickles. The whole thing about pickles, it's a very Jewish food, right?
Yes.
And one of the things is that the Jews didn't have money throughout history, so we had to preserve things and use whatever we could. And we didn't have, there's no money for like fresh food, so we started preserving everything. Hence the pickle that we're eating.
My mom used to say pickles are good for your skin. They make your skin beautiful.
I love that.
And she used to have the pickles and put a Noun Later or a Jolly Rancher in the middle. Then I got hip to the packs of Kool-Aid, the little packs of Kool-Aid, and you dip the pickle in there.
No
you
way.
dip it in the powder, in the Kool-Aid powder, and eat it. It's so
I don't think about that.
So in order to survive, you must pickle the cucumber. And the Jewish people, they are a pickled people, and they will last forever.
Okay, so I apologize for subjecting you to that, but that was just a few weeks ago, and that's Tiffany Haddish, comedian. So this is literally in the middle of this ongoing genocide, and she's there, and she's got a Star of David necklace. I didn't know, is Tiffany part Jewish? Is she Jewish?
Well, she did learn on when she hit 40 that her dad was, I think, Jewish.
Yes,
And
later
then
in life. Yeah.
Exactly. So she decided to embrace that, which obviously nothing against that, but the way she decided to embrace it, obviously now by going to Israel and doing all of this stuff. And, I think it's very interesting who Israel and Noah Tishby brings as artists from the US to kind of communicate with and have promote Israel. It's honestly, what's so funny to me is that it's no one that anyone likes. I'm like Tiffany Haddish, Michael Rappaport, Deborah
Michael
Messing.
Rappaport.
I'm like, what are we doing? I'm like, honestly, if those are the people you want to keep using, use them. Sure.
If the shoe were on the other foot and these were people who regularly posted anti-Semitic screeds speaking loudly about how Jewish people are animals, which is what Rappaport does all the time, or Deborah Messing, or what's her name, Selma Blair or whatever, freaking out about, and then they just apologize. I mean, it is wild what they get away with. But this is, I guess the reason I brought this video up is because it's important to understand, yes, maybe this is sort of a couple things. One, telling the world that in order to be Jewish, you must embrace Israel in all of its genocidal tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, that is how you pledge your allegiance. I mean, Zionists right now are basically trying to say that Jonathan Glazer is not a Jew. That's their go-to.
Yes.
And then the other part of it is that there is a lot of money to bring names like Haddish and to fill out big theaters and to sort of perform there. I mean, Samir, you must know that Israel has regular programs to bring, especially DJs, right? They love to give DJs the opportunity to come and hey, come to Israel. And there is this cultural tourism of getting artists from around the world to come to Israel and kind of see what all the, fuss is about, and don't pay attention to those settlements.
Well, there's an organization that goes by the name of Creative Community for Peace. Now, the so-called Creative Community for Peace it's an Israel lobby group. It's a front group for far-right organizations like Stand With Us. They're basically the same organization, just dressed up in a different way. Now, the so-called Creative Community for Peace, it claims to be the only organization in the world dedicated to fighting the cultural boycott of Israel. As I say, it has these links to really the far right Israel lobby generally, and then on to the Israeli government. But it actually it said in a confidential report that the BDS movement got hold of and leaked in 2017. It said the cultural boycott movement is constantly growing and changing and finding new and innovative ways to reach artists. So for me, the question there is, how is it that BDS, including the cultural boycott of Israel, has come over time to have the kind of impact where Israel spends hundreds of millions of dollars, not tens of millions of dollars, but hundreds of millions of dollars, 900 million, according to The Nation, fighting the global BDS movement. I think one answer is that BDS always balances ethical principles on one hand with strategic effectiveness on the other. So that's to say, we don't run with what's just purely principled and abandon what's strategic. If you just go with your principles all the time, you forget everything else, you might find you're not speaking to a very large audience over time. But if you give up your principles, you just go with what's pragmatic, then what are you really fighting for? So striving to find that golden balance is really, really crucial. Another point I would just mention is that BDS strictly targets complicity, not identity. And it only targets institutions, not individuals. So what does that mean? It means that BDS doesn't boycott any person. It boycotts institutions for their complicity in apartheid. So it's not boycotting Israeli institutions because they're Israeli per se. It's boycotting Israeli institutions, including the entire Israeli cultural sector, because it is complicit in apartheid, settler colonialism, and genocide. So what do we mean by complicity? Well, there are clubs in apartheid Tel Aviv that have celebrated massacres. There are Israeli live music promoters that have glorified Israeli forces as they've carried out this genocide in the last few months. There are.
I mean, there were dance parties,
parks,
right?
yeah.
Weren't there like dance parties and DJs and people playing in celebration of the bombing?
That has been happening over the last few months. There have been explicitly genocidal songs that have repeatedly gone to #1 in the Israeli charts. And there are parks in apartheid Tel Aviv where in the summer, they build like a stadium shows there. And now this park, Yarkon Park, is built over the ruins of 3 ethnically cleansed Palestinian villages. Ethnically cleansed within living memory. This didn't happen millions of years ago. This happened within living memory. So when some international bands and artists go and perform like a stadium show at this park in apartheid Tel Aviv, the fans are really dancing on the ruins of ethnically cleansed Palestinian villages. So, and then there are film festivals that are sponsored, like the Jerusalem Film Festival, for example, is sponsored by organizations that are complicit in the ethnic cleansing of Jerusalem. So when we talk about complicity, it isn't something in the abstract. It's something very real.
And so before I let you go, what's your suggestion for how people can like find ways to implement and start BDS? I mean, other than like, okay, I'm avoiding Starbucks or McDonald's, but like, how do they take a look around them and sort of, see, are they being complicit in some way in apartheid?
So the BDS movement uses 4 campaign selection criteria. I'll just very quickly go through them. 1, the level of complicity. So the more complicit a company or an institution is, the easier it's going to be to convince people to boycott it. So that's one important criteria. A second one is media appeal. Can we get our story heard in the media? Can we break through the wall of censorship that we sometimes encounter? Can we build cross-movement intersectional coalitions? So the potential for that is an important criteria. And then finally, can we win? Because if we can't win, okay, maybe we can't win, but maybe if not, we can carefully set objectives along the way. So these are really important criteria to use when we're thinking about how to go about a campaign. And if anyone is really interested, you can go on bdsmovement.net and look up a strategic guide to BDS campaigning. There's quite a detailed article there.
Puma is a great example of it because this is an international brand. Soccer, other than the United States, or football is very international, and getting your logo off of their shirts is huge. Do you have a sense of how long that campaign was like active for before they finally won?
So Puma was a 5-year BDS campaign.
Yeah, which is not crazy. I mean, that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of strategic and sustained campaigning, this is what works. This is how we leverage grassroots support, because BDS is a global grassroots movement. It doesn't work unless millions of people support it. That is the only power that it has. And what we're trying to do here is build that power, including cultural power. So we're not just boycotting everything that we don't like because we love to boycott. It's not something that is inherent to Palestinians, although, of course, BDS does draw on a very rich history of popular resistance, including boycotts going back many decades. And of course, deeply inspired by the boycotts against apartheid South Africa and the US civil rights movement and so on. But boycotting is a tactic, not a principle, that we use in specific scenarios because we really think it can work.
Yeah. Yeah, and clearly a $900 million in the opposite direction is huge. I'll just say that if there are folks in the United States, there are many states that have passed legislation against BDS. This is preemptive. No one, these are not even states whose budgets have been threatened with divestment from, weapons manufacturers or Israeli companies at all. But there are preemptive laws that say you can't do that. So, reversing those is a huge step. And I think, asking your elected officials where they stand on this, again, nonviolent form of resistance is really, really critical. Before I let you go, Mohanad, any last questions? Any last thoughts?
I feel like everything has been covered already, and I agree with it. Honestly, it's very important. I guess the last thing I would say is for because I feel like a lot of people that I know think that they are alone in this. That they are just themselves, and I get it because the propaganda and like everything is happening right now makes it feel like you are so powerless, and I feel like that's why a lot of people just because you talk about Starbucks, you talk about boycotting, you talk about all of that stuff. I have people in my life who are like, what is me going to Starbucks and buying like one like getting my coffee or something, that's not going to change anything. I'm like, but it's not just you, it's you and hundreds and thousands and millions of other people who can stop doing that together. But I feel like especially in America, because it's so individualistic, it's so focused on the individual, people are not used to being feeling like they are like part of a community or like a bigger movement. And I think obviously this it's sadly it's a cultural thing in the US, I feel. And I feel like this is the time to kind of let go of that and be like, I am part of something, and what I do does matter. And we see that it does matter because, we see that these companies are already like suffering financially. Like you see McDonald's in the Middle East and whatnot, and how they're like have some branches closing in Egypt and all of that. So like you do matter. Like what you do, you can change stuff. So on the individual level, and you should keep doing that even if it doesn't feel like much to you.
Yeah, and you might have a community, and the Presbyterian Church of the United States in 2006 divested from Israel. Specifically, I think it was more occupied territories. They did it in also during the South Africa apartheid regime, so they have a history of that. But you might have institutions, city councils that you are closer to than that are invested in some way in war and genocide. And so I would encourage everyone to, if it's beyond the Starbucks cup, like it could be organizing the Starbucks workers, which I think have already come out with statements against for ceasefire. But Samir, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for breaking it down so cogently and clearly. And everybody, it is bdsmovement.net to find out more. It's actually Apartheid Week, Israeli Apartheid Week, which is an annual sort of week of action where we like raise awareness against apartheid. But of course, it's kind of in our face right now. No, it's not it's a good thing. It's not.
I thought they were celebrating it at first.
No, right? No, they haven't.
Calling it that.
They haven't quite embraced the word themselves.
I was like, Jesus, okay.
But thank you so much, Samir. Take very good care, and thank you. I haven't let you go yet, Mohanad. We have one more segment. But
yes.
My God, Tiffany Haddish. I just had to bring that in to say nothing of there's been Jerry Seinfeld was out in with the IDF.
Yeah, I know.
Just like this is
terrible.
I don't know how to like what the corollary is, but it's like imagine if German Nazis, like some holdover Nazis, like came to Charlottesville and like, linked arms with the Proud Boys or like the Unite the Right folks and were like, hell yeah, what happened there was great. Like, it's truly like even Zionists don't understand that how far right this fucking government is. And then some people are like, no, but I really don't like Netanyahu. Everyone else is fine. It's like everyone else is also complicit in some way. There are peace activists, there are resistors. I don't want to discount the Israeli left, but it is small and it is slim and they don't have nearly as much power as they should.
Absolutely. And that's the last thing I'll add here is what you said is just making it sound like Netanyahu is the only issue here. There is no background, there's no history, there's nothing. I'm like, we're not even looking at the environment that birthed like Netanyahu and people like him. We're just being like, no, he is the issue, and I don't like him. But like, there's no but here. There's literally no but. This has been happening for 75 years before Netanyahu was born. Like, come on.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's move on. We've got one more segment to do, and I don't care about the royal family. I want to state that right now. Yes,
Same.
I'm a big fan of The Crown. I do watch that show. It's great drama. It's just I like good drama. I don't care about the royal family, and I surely least of all care about Kate Middleton, which is why the freak out of Kate Middleton's Photoshop family photo is all the more interesting. To give you a sense, so Kate Middleton over the summer had abdominal surgery that for unspecified ailments. And we as in people who give a shit, have not seen from her for a very long time. And I guess she's very active on social media. Again, don't follow, but she has been absent until a photo that was posted over the weekend on Mother's Day, which I was like, shit, did I miss Mother's Day? No, apparently the UK has a different Mother's Day, which maybe I should have asked Samir about. But immediately the photo was found to have been doctored in multiple ways. There were like hands that were sort of weirdly missing and misaligned collars and other like hair pieces. But here's one of the many TikToks of what are people who have gone down this rabbit hole, and I will call them, or they're being called Kate Middleton truthers, to give you a sense of the level and I guess why. I don't know if there's a why, Mohanad. You see, tell me if there is one.
This is the exact sweater. It's from a company called Rice, I believe. And look at that neckline and look at this part right here. I've upped the exposure quite a lot so that you can see the ribbing better, but look how it lands on her like thigh area, the thickness of that belt of the ribbing, and then look at the turtleneck. Yes, I know a lot of turtlenecks look the same, but I do believe that this was photoshopped to be darker and it was just that cream sweater because they don't make it in another color. They make it in cream and in camel. Now let's look at the boots that she's wearing in this new photo. It's the same exact boots as this baby bank visit that she did with her kids. Let's talk about the little girl and what she's wearing. Look at the neckline on this sweater in this photo. And here she is in a very similar neckline on the same day from the baby bank.
Okay, so this TikToker is claiming that this photo is from last November when the family, the Middleton family, the Prince William family, went to some event. And what the hell, guy? I want to know what is truly happening with Kate Middleton in our new segment, Wrong Answers Only. Wrong answers only. Why did Kate Middleton put out a photoshopped family portrait of herself?
It is, the answer is very easy. Kate Middleton passion for the longest time has been graphic design. And here is my proof, is that, and this delves into another conspiracy theory that in my heart and in my mind, I do not believe to be a conspiracy theory, but the absolute truth is that Queen Elizabeth has been dead since 2020.
Mm.
She didn't die recently. She died in 2020.
Yeah, when all the
A-
greats went out.
Exactly. Exactly. But for the longest time, we've been seeing photos and even videos of Queen Elizabeth speaking to the public, being outside, and all of that. Now, who do we think have been photoshopping all of these photos? It's Kate.
It's Kate.
She's been doing all the work for the longest time because she loves doing that. Not
But
because she
why
thinks it
slip
covers
up
something.
now? Why? Because like her Photoshop jobs, according to you, I guess they were really good. They fooled the public that the queen was actually alive.
Yes, yes. It's as simple as like you have those like serial killers that just like go on for like 30 years or something, but they get so tired and they want to be
Yes.
caught eventually.
Yes.
So they make a mistake on purpose or they like return or something. And she did the same thing. She was like she was kind of like wanna like fuck around. Like she's like, hey, like I want you to realize that this is I made a mistake, yes, but I am making you work for it and I'm making the American public spend so much time
Yep.
caring about me and caring about British people. Also, like, didn't the Americans fight a whole war to not care about British people? But they're doing it again.
Especially the royalty, like in
Yes.
particular, the royalty. I
Yes.
like this. So, okay. So she's trying to get caught to alert everyone that, like, I don't know, giving her the graphic design cred that she deserves, or it's like a cry for help. Like, so I think it's not photoshopped. I think that
hmm
wrong answers only. Her children are not alive. In fact, they're ghosts. And the
Yeah.
reason that their hands were slowly disappearing is because of the way that light refraction works when you photograph a ghost,
Mm.
is that they're not fully there. They sort of have a feathered edge to them. The children have been dead for some time. Kate has been part of a QAnon conspiracy theory and actually killed them because she thought they had lizard blood. But so she's not
Wow.
sick. It's her children who actually were hospitalized, also because she wants the crown to herself. And if she kills or gets rid
Wow.
of every single line of succession to William,
Wow.
eventually the crown winds up on her head.
Wow. I mean, I can see that. So you're saying that she's like in a Nicole Kidman scenario and the others,
Yes, although I
where
haven't seen that, but yes. Tell
I
me what
can
happens.
no, I can see that. And I mean, like another thing is about it is like with the fingers, they're like, oh, AI can get fingers. I mean, yeah, they can be ghosts, but at the same time, I mean, we've watched The Crown, generations of incest. I mean, that's why they have fucked up fingers. Their fingers are just absolutely fucked up. We've seen King Charles' fingers. That's not AI. That's just his fingers. They're fucked up.
Yep. Yeah,
So
no, exactly. He's got some big old like sausage fingers too.
exactly.
They are really
Yeah.
weird. Okay, so I got some love for the QAnon theory. Ben Pierce says Kate was abducted by aliens. I like that. I also think abdominal pains is how the movie Alien begins. I mean, doesn't the queen, their queen, lay an egg inside of you? Maybe this queen laid an egg inside of Kate Middleton, and it just burst out of her chest
That's so
and
gross.
started singing like in Spaceballs, which is the greatest movie ever. Mohanad Elsheiky. I don't know if you're laughing at that or you've got another thought, but
No, it just I'm just imagining that egg laying and it's just so funny and so fucking gross.
well, don't you have to like clam on to the mouth and then like I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. I don't know if that's Alien or Predator. I think it's Alien. I don't know what Predator does. I think Predator's just horribly misunderstood from what I've learned.
Yeah.
Mohanad Elsheiky, you're wonderful. We didn't even talk enough about all of our favorite horrible Hasbaras, but you could go on my husband's podcast, Bad Hasbara, for all that. But where can people find you and follow your work and see you live maybe?
Yeah. So you can find me. I'm mostly on Instagram.com under Mohanad Elsheiky.
Oh,
And I've also noticed in the chat that someone asked if Mohanad was a pseudonym. No, it is my name. That's just how it is. So sorry to disappoint. It's not a different name. It's just how my name is spelled. So yeah, find me on Instagram. Find me on twitter.com as well. And that is where I usually post about like live shows and upcoming stuff. Come see a live show. I'm on tour currently, so maybe I'll be in your city.
Hell
It'll be
yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for being here. Please come back. And thank you all for being here as well. That was a banger of a show. A few comments, a few announcements, and we'll fuck off into the night. Robert, thank you for your super chat. Says every conspiracy we know started as a theory. That's right. It's not a conspiracy. It's just a con theory. I can't. We don't. Look, I don't know how the whistleblower died. Like, I mean, maybe he killed himself. That's fine. Also, and here's the other thing. This is what I didn't get to say about it is he was being deposed by Boeing the day before. Now, if you've already been pushed to the brink by a corporation that effectively wants you dead and wants to silence you, and then you get deposed for hours and hours and hours, that does a number on your head. That is not a fun place to be. Haven't you seen the movie Michael Clayton? One of the best movies ever. John Farrell on YouTube. Again, they're also making spacecraft. This is about Boeing. Boeing Starliner behind schedule due to NASA flagging them for using flammable adhesives in the cockpit and parachute lines, not up to NASA standards. Ugh. See, and anyway, don't get me started on space. Mark B, what happened to News Broke? News Broke was not renews broked. No, News Broke went the way of the dinosaurs in the year 2021. But who knows? With enough love, you could bring it back. Maybe here, maybe as part of the Bituation Room. What? No, I miss News Broke every single damn day, and sadly, it is a lot to make good. So this is what you get instead of News Broke, until such time as I get funding to bring it back, or someone wants to bring it back. Patreon.com/Bituation Room, everybody. Gary Cooper, I don't drink alcohol before during a flight because it would slow my reflexes in an emergency landing. I'm serious. Oh, that's why I don't take off my shoes. I'll be drunk, but my shoes got to stay on because, I can run in the sky. Chris Frederick, the Bituation Room with Francesca Fiorentine. Trump is advertising hard on your channel. The second I clicked, what a joke. Look, this is why big tech is against us. And you can't listen to this, folks. First of all, you have to know something. This is very brief, that the amount of money that YouTube creators with sort of mid-sized channels like myself make on pre-roll ads is nothing. It is minuscule. And we don't get to choose whether we want or who we want to advertise on our channel, right? I can't say whether I would like Donald Trump or that dude who wants me to drink mud to advertise on my channel, right? So it's wild that not only are they making tons of money on it, or they're making tons of money, I'm making nothing, and I don't have a chance or an opportunity to decide who advertises or not. That being said, tip this show, TBR-Live on Venmo, TBR Live on Cash App. You can send in a super chat, send in a super sticker, and you can also become a patron at patreon.com/Bituation Room. Thank you so much. Morbius Dragon, I'm sorry to throw facts out here, but pickles started in Mesopotamia, which is now current day Iraq. Wow. Facts. It's socialism or barbarism on Twitch. They shouldn't be in the Olympics either, winter or summer, speaking about Israel. Israel should not be in Europa or Champions League football, not until their apartheid conditions end. Agreed. Let's see. Shade Dragon says about Kate Middleton, she was always an animatronic and she broke. Dude, I don't even know what's going on. Crystal McLean, thank you so much for being a member, says Kate was really the puppet master for the fake Queen Elizabeth animatronic puppet. Now that they killed the puppet off, they don't need Kate. Girl, I love that. I'm going with that. And with that, you guys, for just some shout outs for patrons at $10 or more. Here we go, baby. God damn it, where's my Twitch? No. All right. I've wasted enough time. Thank you to David Donacci for becoming a patron at $10 or more, getting this lovely, lovely shout out. I had my Twitch thing open, but here, I'll go here. Wait for me. I might have to do this next time. Oh, I was gonna. This is so sad. I wanted to shout out my Twitch people. I'm so sorry. It's okay. I can't find it. I'm crushed. I'm upset. Edit all that out. I don't care. Thank you guys so much. Really happy to have you here. Thank you for supporting the show. Remember to come see me and Matt Lieb on Sunday. Yes, that is right. We're going to be in Sacramento on St. Patrick's Day, Sunday, March 17th at 7 p.m. Tickets below or at francescafiorentini.com or at Sacramento or punchlinesac.com. Thank you to Paige Omek, to Maximilian Inhofe, to Andy Vasoyan. We stream every Tuesday and Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Twitch. And also follow the show on all the socials, Bituation Pod on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram at Bituation Room. And remember to fight the power, to fuck the patriarchy, to free Palestine. And don't just bitch about it, be about it. Bye.